What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We are here live at Duffy's, the home of the Hurricanes, heart of Miami-Dade County, edge of Coral Gables. Loaded show, Pete. We're all over the map here. We're going to talk some recruiting here to start some big football recruiting developments. Then we'll talk to Coach Moran of the Miami Hurricanes, who are rocking and rolling in the ACC, and then finish off with Lance Roffers, another deep dive powered by McConathy Financial, as always. So, Pete, man, a lot to talk about here on a February Friday.
It doesn't stop, man. It's an awesome time right now to obviously be a Canes fan with everything going on. You got the baseball team in town this weekend, have their series going on, 4-game series. Then Canes Hoops going on the road. We'll talk to Coach Moran a little bit about that game, but just obviously the season as a whole and his role. Very excited about that interview coming up here. But like you said, we're here at Duffy's. Like, it does not get any better than this. It's great because basketball and baseball season, I mean, we're right down the street from campus, right? So before games, after games, whatever, you got to get out here to Duffy's Tavern. It's a classic spot, man. Always feel at home here.
No, definitely. And ready to talk. Let's talk recruiting to start, Pete, because, by the way, you did a great interview yesterday on the PM show. Learned a lot about Ben Congden, who we talk about all these freaks of nature between Cantwell and Joel Irvin. Ben Congden, he talked to his agent, to one of his trainers. You got to put him in the mix as well as one of these freaks of nature in that class. I really think those three, there's a lot of guys in that class, a lot of talent, but those three in particular, we talk about Congden, Cantwell, and Irvin. A lot hinges on those guys because they're just so physically talented getting this thing rolling.
My biggest takeaway from that interview is that he's 330 right now.
Yeah.
And you've seen him walking around. We saw him at the basketball game the other day, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, just seen him like walking around campus. And I said to myself, that looks close. That just certainly looks over three. I said on the show before knowing what the way, I was like, he looks over 320 for sure. And you talk about the way he's moving too. From what I understand, his body's built the way that it's very proportional to where the weight is going, right? It's not like he's just got a big belly on him. And I think we're seeing that with other guys like Frederick Saintis with some of the pictures. And it's still so early on. You'll see a lot of this development here when we get to spring. But I agree, man. You got to be super excited about him, Cantwell, Joel Irvin. I know Jamal Merriweather is an older guy because he's coming in with a couple years of experience from Georgia. But I kind of throw him in that mix as well as someone who hasn't fully developed yet. And they're very excited about the physical upside there. So obviously questions at offensive line, but they've got the pieces to put it together.
So definitely check out CanesInSight PM. Pete doing a lot of work there for your afternoon drive. All right, let's get into recruiting here because some very big news, unexpected news from my standpoint yesterday, as the number 2 quarterback in the country, number 5, depending which ranking you use, Israel Abrams from Chicago reports a Miami offer, and just like that, scheduled his visit to Miami like right away. So that was just boom, boom. He'll be visiting for spring, and a very, very interesting prospect for a lot of reasons. We were talking about it off air. There you see the offer, and right away he set up his visit. Here's some quotes.
Love this logo he used. I said it on the show yesterday when I talked about it. Old school.
There it is, man. And, just quotes Cam Ward, Carson Beck, Mensa. Those guys are the gifts that keep on giving, because not only, at least in Ward and Beck's case, we got the production out of the Mensa. We expect a ton of production this year. But you also have players looking at them as examples of how you can succeed in this offense behind this offensive line. So there is Israel Abrams. He was very quick to mention those guys. But you look at the record. Undefeated. He's got the tools. Andrew Ivins, I thought, had a very good comparison for Abrams in terms of just what he looks like. And it was Nico.
Yeah, I saw that.
From Tennessee, now at UCLA. Just looks like him, tall, twitchy, kind of quick arm, 40 touchdowns, 6 INTs. Last year ran for 10 touchdowns, 224 rushing yards, threw for over 4,000 over there in Chicago. We talked about the 3 Chicago defensive tackle offers yesterday. Now we're back to Chicago for a quarterback. So this has been an area Miami's focusing on. I love it because not everybody wants to go to Notre Dame. There's no real local school. Illinois is doing better with those guys, but it's not a powerhouse. Miami, again, a big city. A lot of people from Chicago, when they get some money, move to Florida, mostly on the west coast of Florida, but certainly down here. Why wouldn't you? So these guys got money. Maybe they moved out to Florida a little early.
Yeah, I mean, and I said it on the show yesterday. Obviously, right away when you watch the tape, it's the traits are there, right? And we've mentioned guys like Davin Davidson, who's super traitsy. Larry Bluestein said he thinks he's a cut above a lot of the guys that Miami's on right now. Neiman Lawrence, we'll see what happens with his reclassification process. Will Menzel, Champ Mons, a couple other guys in the mix. But I find, and that's what I said yesterday on the show when I talked about this as well, D, I found between the list that he's got, which we'll get more into now in a second, and Miami offer right now, I think if he set that visit up, like I said earlier, you see him set this visit up, I think he has now become a very legitimate option to be the guy in this class, because you say it with quarterbacks all the time. Yeah, across his body down the field. He had a couple other ones where he on the run is able to fit some throws in, throws the ball with touch, can put a little bit more juice on the ball and fit it into certain windows. But this is a winnable recruitment from I think Miami's perspective. And you talk about with quarterbacks all the time, it's musical chairs. You start to see, okay, Will Menzel, Oregon seems to be the favorite there. Davin Davidson, Miami probably could be very much in the mix if they push, but it doesn't look like they've decided to do that just yet. Champ Mons, I know Miami's in the mix, but how hard have they recruited him to this point? So as you start to look at all of these different scenarios, you look at this one and say, okay, he's already setting up an official visit. The schools that are in the mix, you can probably win that battle based on recent results. Now the question is, is he a guy who wants to come in and have a legitimate chance to start right away, which some of those other places might have better opportunities to do so, but the talent is there.
No doubt. I mean, look, maybe they do have better opportunities, maybe they don't, as we see him here. I see him on the state championship game, throw touchdowns, the stats are there. You usually don't get guys this height with the twitch that he has. Usually guys that are that tall are less sudden. This guy is very sudden, both with his feet and his arm. You can see why he is a top 5 quarterback in the country on the composite, number 2 overall according to 247. Again, that Nico comp. Just look at this, that twitchiness. Usually guys that are tall are more slow moving. They build up speed. This guy's got a lot of just short area quicks and suddenness and arm quickness as well. It's not a long, release. It takes a lot of time, and he can do it from different angles. But what you said about the schools after him, the Auburns, the Kentuckys, the FSUs of the world, right? So he is somebody who his list doesn't blow you away, but then you think, all right, well, where did the number 1 quarterback in the country sign with last year? Vanderbilt. Where did the number 2 quarterback in the country sign with last year? Houston, or whatever way order you put him in. You had other schools getting in that top quarterback mix in terms of out of high school. So I think you see some of these highly rated quarterbacks not going necessarily to the Ohio States and Alabamas like they used to, but maybe going more towards places where they can play early and start early. And you mentioned Miami might not be as good of a choice, which is possible. But look, at the same time, if you look at Kentucky, who's on his list, they got Kenny Minchie. Kenny Minchie might be there for multiple years. Miami has Darian Mensah, who he's gone. So they do have Luke Nickel. They do have Darian Coleman, but there's no reason why this guy can't come in there and compete with those guys right away. I'm sure he has confidence in his own abilities, as you see him here in the state championship game making all kinds of throws. So it's not necessarily true to me that Miami doesn't have a chance to play early, because our quarterback is gone next year, and the other guys are not proven at this point. So to me, it's an open competition, and a guy like this with this kind of ability, he would jump right into it. I'm very impressed with this guy because of the production, the tools.
Sick.
I heard an interview with him. He seemed like a real engaging kid. Definitely no red flags. Just hearing him communicate, right? I mean, he seemed like a sharp guy. Seemed very locked in. So I think it's more of a situation where
I don't know about Florida State being on the list.
Yeah, that
might knock the intelligence down a little bit.
We'll just assume that's a coach, as a connection to the coach or something. But those are some of those schools like Auburn's like a running, it's USF's offense is goalish. I don't know if he's that kind of runner. Not that he can't run, but this is what he does. Those off-platform throws, driving the ball. I don't see a guy that's like a goalish quarterback. Kentucky, I could see more, but they have Kenny Minchie, who's a redshirt sophomore. He could be there 3 years if he hits. So this would be an interesting recruiting to watch. We had Will Menzel, we talked about, from Broward County originally, went to the All-America game, tore it up as an underclassman. He's now in Chandler, Arizona, Phoenix area. He's going to be in the mix with Auburn there as well, Oregon there as well. Neiman Lawrence, will he reclass the quarterback for American Heritage? Best local guy. Davin Davidson, who I love from Sarasota, big explosive athlete, big arm, a late blooming type baseball player. But
Larry loved him when we talked about him in the we asked him to kind of stack the quarterbacks in state, and he thought he was a cut above.
Yep. So we'll be interesting to see. Josh Gross pointing out that when it came to like Henderson and Jared Curtis, those were hometown deals, which I think is a fair point. They were. Henderson's from Houston, signed with Houston. Curtis is from Nashville, signed with Vanderbilt.
Curtis also, that seems like a pretty good choice for him, I would say, right now.
Yeah. He's going to start right away.
Vanderbilt's a pretty good destination if I'm a recruit, honestly. It's a nice, as you said, nice city. Compared with Miami in that sense, where you only have so many big city college programs, and that's one of them. So
yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, shout out to General Metals, my boy Josh Sarnoff. Me and him were tearing up some Motec yesterday in Brickell, the impresario of Scrap City. So remember, scrap-city.com. If you have scrap metal, turn it into cash. AC companies, electricians, plumbers, all you guys that work with your hands, have companies, a lot of scrap metal, go to scrap-city.com. Take care of that scrap metal, turn it into cash in the South Florida area. Shout out to Josh Sarnoff. You want to get into the rest of the recruiting news? Or we
have Coach Andrew Moran will be joining us here in a couple minutes. So I don't want to get started on it, D, and then he jumps in at that point. So maybe we get back to the other recruiting news after that.
Yeah, so just some more stuff while we're talking about Abrams here, just some more specs on him. Like I said, tall quarterback at 6'4", 187. I believe that's verified because he was a camp kid. Montini Catholic is the name of his school. It's in the Chicago area. This is amazing to me. Not only did he go undefeated this year, he went undefeated last year. So he is 24-0 as a starter, 2 state championships in the state of Illinois. 68.5% passer, so the completion percentage is there. You don't always see that. Sometimes with these young, big quarterbacks, you look at their completion percentage, it's not that high. You see the highlights, but this guy's completing passes at a high level, 4,000 yards, 40 TDs, 6 INTs, like I mentioned. In the championship game against Rochester, which you saw some highlights of that we just played in the huddle, there's one game for the state title, 425 yards, 4 touchdowns passing, and a rushing touchdown. So, there's a lot to like with this player. He already actually has officials set up to Auburn, Florida State, right, Kentucky, and Purdue. So Miami's lurking. Miami gets that last official after his unofficial here. You can see the buzz pick up for an Israel Abrams.
I wonder, this is a bigger picture thing, but I wonder if Golesh is going to realize he needs someone with a little bit more passing ability consistently in his offense too, and maybe he kind of tweaks what he does.
Well, we talked about Nico.
Yeah.
Nico was the quarterback for Josh Heupel, that's where Golesh came from. So it's not like you necessarily need that Braylon Brown type. They lost Deuce Knight, who would have fit in perfectly for that long term. I'm interested to watch what happens with Auburn, but I don't see this being a competition where you can't win if you really want the player. And this could be something. Sometimes you see these quarterbacks jump on the scene, and over time, the staff gets more enamored with them. They already know about Lawrence. They already know about Davidson. They already know about Menzel. Learning more about Abrams. So maybe as they learn more about what he can do, his skill set, he continues to rise up the board. And then these visits really move the needle both ways. It's not just you move the needle when someone visits for spring. It's not, and I say this all the time, this is just something I've really learned dealing with these situations, is when a player comes and visits with his family, with his whole crew, he learns about the school learns a lot about the player. So sometimes you'll see these guys visit, and afterwards it's like, we're going a different direction. Other times it's, man, we better get this guy. We're all in. We had him on campus. We need to bring him back on campus and keep him here. So keep an eye on that visit, which I believe will be late March for Abrams during spring practice. You'll see the practice. You'll see how Shannon Dawson works with the quarterbacks. You'll see Luke Nickel. You'll see Darion Coleman. More importantly, you'll see all those great wide receivers that they're throwing it to. First team, second
offensive
team,
line.
You'll see Big Ben Congden and Jackson Cantwell walking around. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic for Israel Abrams.
Flankerton with a question here, asking if we saw the article on 3 about Indiana, talking about the eligibility thing, maybe with the safety.
How a 1975 legal battle could lead to NCAA punishment for Memphis, San Diego State, and maybe Indiana. Yeah, that'd be fun to win the national championship.
Yeah, would it be? I don't know. That's a whole discussion for a different.
We're not going to claim that.
A different day. Yeah. I don't think Mario would rather vomit all over himself than do that.
I mean, does it come with money? Like, do you get money if you win the national championship and with the NCAA? They're the ones that do the payouts, right? Or not do the payouts.
They'll vacate it, and the win's not going to come to Miami. But we have our guest here ready in the lobby, so I'm going to bring him in. They used to call him the Wizard of West.
They never called me that.
I heard they did. When I was going down 87th Avenue, I would hear the whispers, Coach.
Yeah.
So we got Coach Andrew.
I don't know if they called me that.
Coach Andrew Moran, excited to have you join the show today. Congratulations for your success, the team's success. It's been 10 months since you've been on campus, right? So hasn't even been a year here. You were hired in April of last year. A bit of a whirlwind of a year, huh? So talk to us about your transition to Miami, man.
No, man, it's been great. Obviously, I was coaching at Columbus right down the road, and able to transition, stay home, keep my family home, and then be a part of the Canes family. Obviously, I've been living here in Miami since 1998. I moved here when I was 15 years old. My wife's born and raised here, so to be able to stay here and build something special off of what Coach L did and continue moving forward and I don't know, try to be on that same level as the football team.
Coach, one thing that football's kind of had in this community is it's always had the best players coming out of here, right? And that's something you associated with South Florida. It feels like in the last 5 years, and you've been a big part of this, South Florida's become a basketball hotbed for players coming out of here. How have you seen that evolution just firsthand playing down here and then seeing it as a coach and now at the University of Miami with the local talent?
Well, where I think the basketball kind of built up a lot is, especially the kids that I coached at Columbus were those young kids watching Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and Chris Bosh in those championships. So I think you had a newfound love for basketball. Obviously, football and baseball have been hotbeds down here in Miami, but some of these young kids were able to watch the success of the Miami Heat as well as the Hurricanes at that time as well when Shane Larkin was playing and that group. So it was cool to watch that whole group grow, and obviously we had some very highly talented kids. And that's what we tried to do this year with this team, bring in a lot of Florida kids, South Florida kids, Miami kids, and really build around the top talent locally.
Coach, from the outside looking in, one thing that really seems apparent is that the staff is tightly knit. And Coach Lucas, it seemed like everyone he brought in, he had, a specific reason, a specific role he wanted them to play. Can you talk about just the synergy of you guys as a coaching staff and kind of how it's come together so quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, everyone brings their own individual strengths, but what I think Jay has done the best is he allows us to all have a voice and he allows us to all show our value. He's not the guy that just wants to be the only guy teaching or the only guy talking. He knows he hired us for a reason, and he wants us to be able to show our value, whether it's in practice, games, or at least in my case when I'm running individual workouts with the players. So a testament to Jay. Obviously, as you see so far, he's a great coach, but he's also a great person. I got to know him over the last 3 to 4 years just because he was recruiting the Boozers to Duke, and just created a pretty good friendship, that, obviously grew into him asking me to come on staff. So then you have, CY, who's been in this coaching game for over 30 years and one of the one of the great coaches in this game and one of the great recruiters as well. You got Eric Pastrana, who's also from South Florida, who brings in a ton of experience with recruiting and coaching. And then you also have Coach Springman, who actually was an assistant coach when Jay was playing at Texas. So, I mean, I think also the staff, I kind of think leans on each other for different things and allows, to kind of have a collaborative, plan every time we go into games or practice.
Coach, obviously one of your biggest focuses is player development. You've worked with high school kids as the coach at Columbus. Now you're working with college kids. People might not realize you've worked with a lot of NBA players as well, so the highest level players in the world. What's it been like from a player development standpoint, working with people at different stages, different maturity levels, different skill levels, and just kind of teaching them, making them better, even though they might not be at the same stage?
So for me, honestly, because I was already training NBA guys even before I took the job at Columbus, and I think that really helped me just in the communication part when you're communicating with high-level players, allowing high-level players to be themselves. Sometimes those guys see the game at a different speed and a different level, and you kind of got to set them free. You can't, just be over coaching. You got to kind of let them go. So with my experience with the NBA guys, definitely helped me, um, with my coaching at Columbus, and then obviously has carried over to here just because those guys already have a lot of trust in what I bring because of the experience and the type of players that I've had the opportunity to work with.
Coach, you got a shout out the other day from Trey Donaldson in the press conference there, and not a lot of people realize he was here already late spring, early summer, finishing online classes at Michigan, putting in the work pretty much right when you got hired. So you could talk about just the work that he's put in to get to this point, and it seems like he's playing with a ton of confidence.
Yeah, there's one thing about Trey is he's always going to be in the gym working, and when he got here, he was doing 3-a-days, he 2 times on the court and 1 time in the weight room. So the way we try to plan it out is kind of similar to how I would run the pre-draft workouts. We want to do an intense skill workout in the mornings, and then we want to give him a break. He goes to the weight room, and then we're coming back and we're getting our shots up. But just, I think he's starting to feel it himself and starting to see the confidence because of the work that he's put in. Throughout a season, you have your ups and downs. It's just really nice to see him really catching his stride as we go down the stretch here. And then obviously in a game where, Malik was in and out because, struggling with the migraines, and for him to step up like that, is specifically in that second half, I think he scored our final 13 points or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but just, I think, and a lot of people talk about it, but, you build your confidence in the work that you put in. And there's one thing for sure. He's put countless hours of work in on his game, obviously since he's been here, but also, just growing up. I know he's put a ton of work in with his dad, and he's always trying to improve himself.
Speaking of Malik, he was a good player at Indiana, obviously did a lot of great things, but taking him here and making him the hub that he is, both scoring, passing, you see him hitting threes now, just what was your plan and the staff's plan with him to take him to this next level that we're seeing now?
Well, I think, that's a testament to Coach Lucas. He's really done an amazing job putting Malik in the spots where he really has success and where where his strengths are, obviously getting him in the pocket in those short rolls. He's elite, obviously, starting to pass the ball really well, but just finishing around the rim. And then his passing ability between him and Ernest have been incredible, where he gets that lob from the dunker spot. And then his shooting, I think we knew he could shoot, but as we saw him in person, I already knew oh, this guy can really shoot. He's just learning to take the right ones. I'm pretty sure he's had a huge jump in percentage in terms of 3-point percentage, and then all his numbers are up. And for me, even Trey's numbers are up and Ernest's numbers are up. I think that's a testament to Coach Lucas understanding the strengths of the players that he has and really getting them in the right spots and building our offense around that.
Coach, outside of the work that you do with the guys in the gym on the development side, people may not know that in game you're a big part of the defensive adjustments and the defensive matchups. Like, you see guys watch Coach Moran coming out of the timeouts. He's always leaning over, trying to see. He's in the middle of the course sometimes, trying to see which five are coming out there. You know, without giving too much away, Coach, can you just talk about the process of, you know, trying to figure out these matchups in game? And one thing I have said, you know, a few times this year is that Coach Lucas isn't shy about making switches quickly, right?
Yeah.
So just talk about that process and kind of how it works in the middle of the game.
Well, yeah, he's given me the opportunity to kind of handle the matchups throughout games. Obviously, we have our starting lineup matchups, but players are in and out, and just trying to get the right guys on the players that I feel like, you know, they can guard the best, you know. And we also switch, so everyone's got to be prepared. But also, you know, Coach Lucas does a great job just adjustments in game. You know, in-game adjustments, I think are you know, sometimes some of the toughest things to do, and I think he does a great job. And then Coach Springman and CY also handle the defense as well. So we're trying to just work together and then send those messages up to Lucas and try to make those adjustments as quickly as possible. But yeah, man, it's been a, you know, as a first year coach in college, it's been really nice, you know, just the opportunity that Lucas has given me and you know, some of the free reign that he's given me to allow me to really showcase what I can do. And again, I'll fall back on what he does. He allows all the coaches to really show their value, and I think you could see that throughout the game.
That's why they call him the Wizard, man.
Nah, no. I'm not sure where that came from.
It's already in the chat. They're already saying it in the chat. So
listen, if I start the hashtag, it'll become a thing. But I won't do it. I won't do it. He's pushing back on it.
Yeah. What's the recording ends? Be like, yeah, man, push that. So, Coach, you know, Sheldon Henderson, a guy who's already one of the best freshmen in the NCAA, but still a young player. What's the focus from him, just in terms of developing his skill set, expanding his skill set, and taking his game to the next level?
I just want him to really go into games with a ton of confidence. Obviously, his physicality is what allows him to showcase his game, but he's got a lot of skill to him that it's right there ready to be unleashed. And I just continue to try to encourage him to get out there and be aggressive, whether it's scoring or just being a playmaker, you know. And what he's done lately, honestly, at a high level, is I think he's defending really well, but also rebounding the ball. I want to say against NC State, he might have had 5 or 7 offensive rebounds. I can't exactly remember, but he's really, really locked in on that and really done a great job, just because that's a core strength of our team anyways. And when you have guards rebounding at a high level, it just helps so much more. But, I mean, Sheldon's a high-level talent. We haven't even seen the best of him. And as you see, as we go through the hardest part of our schedule, he continues to improve and even play at a higher level. So I'm just excited to see what he's going to do in these last 5 games, and then all the way into ACC tournament and as we get into that big tournament, hopefully.
A couple more things here before we let you go, Coach. It's got to be a unique perspective for you as a coach, being able to work with a guy like a Dante Allen that you've known and coached from a very young age, and to now see him and have this opportunity. Like, outside of just normal skills trainers, coaches don't get the opportunity to do kind of what you're doing. And it's going to happen here again now in the next year with a Caleb Gaskins as well. And there's more guys that could be on a similar line as that. So talk about, as a coach, how does that help you? Because you've seen his growth and his development, and now he's at this level, and you still have the ability to work with him hands-on.
Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, the relationship that you have with the players is the most important. And just being able to continue to instill confidence in him as he takes his game to the next level. But just to watch his growth, I mean, even I've been coaching Dante since, like, I believe 8th grade, you know, starting with Night Riders and And you know, I didn't coach him actually in his high school team, but throughout his high school career on Night Riders, just to watch his growth with us. But then as he would go back to his individual team, his game continued to improve. His shot is throughout his high school career improved as well. And we're just trying to continue to improve on that, because he's getting good looks and we want him to be able to knock those down. But it's just, I think the relationship is the most important, because the belief that he has in me, the belief I have in him, and then, you know, I think that instills confidence in him and allows him to play at a high level.
And just following up on that, Coach Lucas the other day was on with us, and he spoke very highly of Caleb Gaskins and his character and his maturity. Can you talk to us about you can obviously talk about that side of it, but the skill set that he's bringing to Miami, as you know, he'll be here now in a few months.
Mm-hmm. No, he's an elite. He has an elite skill set. He can put it on the floor. He's really improved his 3-point shot tremendously over this past year. He could play with his back to the basket, and then, you know, he coming in and rebounding the basketball. So I think his versatility is what is going to help him to have so much success at this next level. Just being able to face up, play on the perimeter, play, you know, in the pocket as he sets ball screens, play with his back to the basket. So I think those are the type of players that Coach Lucas is looking for. Also defensively, being able to switch 1 through 5. So we really want to continue to bring in players with ton of versatility on both sides of the ball, because that allows us to do so many different things. But I think people are going to be very excited once they start seeing Caleb playing. I think a lot of people think he's really good, but he's got a lot of skill to him, and that he's going to be able to showcase.
Coach, you got 3 guys from overseas this year, really different countries. Talk about Israel, Turkey, and Slovakia. Mm-hmm. So just the adjustment, not just the basketball, making sure that, you know, their skill level continues to develop, but like transitioning to this style of play and having the confidence to do what they do. What's that process been like for you?
I mean, for me, it's been really good. For them, I think at times early on, there was a bit of a learning curve, but I think they're catching their stride, and giving us the most out of the minutes that they get to put on the floor. You know, I think our game's a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more physical. So I think for them to continue to make that adjustment, they're just going to continue to improve. And you know, it's hard for any person who moves that far away, not just guys that move across the country, but, you know, guys that move from across the world. It takes a little bit of time to adjust. You know, they're away from their families. The time difference between the communication with their families can be tough, but I think they've really settled in, and they're feeling very comfortable with the team.
My last question for you, Coach, as the team, I know you guys are heading on the road now in a few hours, headed up to Virginia, big time ACC matchup. I mean, they all are big matchups at this point of the year, but what's it like for you? I mean, working with the guys now during the season at this grind part of the year, in like your one-on-one sessions with them compared to off season, like what's the training regimen like compared to, you know, when you aren't at this point of the season?
Well, definitely for the guys that play heavy minutes, the difference would be the intensity of the workout. You know, we don't want to kill the guys. We want them to be fresh, but we also want them to be confident. So the guys that are playing heavy minutes, you know, their workouts will be more lighter. They're more shooting, less like explosive movements, just to keep them fresh. And then some of the other guys, they're pretty intense, you know, specifically, you know, with Timo yesterday, we're going pretty hard, you know, and I think he's due for some great games coming up, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I would say that would be the biggest difference between off season and during season is the intensity of the workouts, because, you know, we don't want to wear them out where they're just exhausted in games.
I'm with you on Timo, man. And Coach Lucas said the other day in one of his press conferences, he's kind of been playing a different role because of Marcus being out, and that has kind of changed, you know, what he's had to do within the system. So, you got anything else, Steve?
Oh man, just thank you for what you're doing for this community, man. The energy is starting to build. That was an awesome atmosphere for VTech, and
Yeah.
hope it keeps on rolling, man. Because this is turning into a basketball town. Started with the Heat, but like you said, high school, everything is starting to come together, and now the Canes rocking and rolling, man. So appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Coach.
See you.
Awesome stuff there from Coach Moran. Really, great to have him in the program, not only on the development side, but as we were talking about, people don't realize in game what he's doing as well is big time. I'm telling you guys, look at him in the timeout breaks. It's great to watch. So the staff is coaching their butts off, man. I mean, we can talk about the talent that they put together as a whole, which we understood that when Coach Moran was brought in, the ties that he was going to have, and the Caleb Gaskins of the world that are coming here, majorly in part to his presence on the staff, but the coaching side of it, not just with him, but what you're talking about with Coach Springman, who's been a head coach, Coach CY, who's been with Leonard Hamilton, who's been at Missouri, who's been a ton of different places, and then Coach Lucas obviously tying it all together.
No doubt about it, man. No, I'm excited to see this team continue to develop and do their thing. Want to do quick shout out here to our friends, or our friend, I should say, the Orchid Man, ORCHID Man, Orchid Man, Florida, another Columbus guy. These Columbus guys, man, they're getting too prominent for my taste, but you got to give them props. ORCHID Man, Florida, residential, commercial, all your landscaping needs. They will take care of it, soup to nuts, the whole process, the irrigation, the maintenance, the construction aspects, the tree stump grinding, all that. They will make sure that you are on the right track. 786-271-0332. 10% off your first service. South Florida's landscape artisans. That is Orchid Man Florida, ORCHID Man Florida.com.
I know we have we want to get back to recruiting. D bagging up, I got to say, he's hyper focused on the athletes, which is, the Jimmies and Joes definitely do get it done. He says, watching Auburn, Bama, and Arkansas, they have a different level of athlete at every position on the floor. That Bama versus Arkansas game was unreal a few nights ago. A-Cuff is definitely big time. I mean, Auburn's 14-13 right now. So, I mean, they can have all the athletes they want, but I'll take where Miami's at. Obviously, I have a ton of respect for Bama and Arkansas, but yeah, I think if you expected Miami to have that level of talent year one, you're out of your mind. But listen to what Coach just said. You're going to pair, and he said you got to be able to play pretty much positionless basketball. You got to be able to switch everything. Caleb Gaskins and Shelton on the floor together, and you have three other guys you got to figure out there. But Timo, and you can hear the confidence. They know Timo. They know Timo's a dude. I think that you give him a whole nother year of development, and he's going to be a big-time player. I think he'll be a double-digit type scorer for this team, and a 3, 4, 5 assist guy per game. I really do think he could be that sort of playmaker moving forward. But you add in a couple other guys, and you're not far off. You really aren't.
No, and you have to factor in. It's not just the athleticism. You have to factor in the size and strength as well. So, like a guy like Jaleel Bethea, who is at Alabama. I don't know if he's playing too much at Alabama, but he had all the run and jump athleticism on the plane, is super coordinated, all that kind of stuff, had skill as well, but there was a little bit of lack of physicality to him, which a Trey Donaldson, for example, doesn't have. Trey Donaldson, talking about athleticism, he could have easily, in my view, just watching his high school highlights, you're talking about a big-time safety. If you gave me a blind test without knowing any other stuff.
Coach Etheridge tried to, I've said this before, his first week on campus, Etheridge called him, legitimately trying to get him to come play safety.
Right.
And that was before they had Jacoby Thomas, too. So they were still trying to find – they didn't know what they were going to do there. And that shows you what he actually thought for him to do that. Bagging up, he's letting us know his credentials. He says he played point guard in college. We're not questioning the credentials. I never do with you, bagging up. He says you need two-way players as well. I mean, I think Gaskins and Shelton are quintessential two-way guys. Dante Allen's and yes, you want more of the offensive game to continue to develop. But what are you talking about with Dante Allen? Just that he isn't a knockdown three-point shooter to this point? Is that really because he's a confident player offensively. When he has the ball in his hands, he's getting downhill. He's making good decisions with it. you can't just take the ball away from him. You know, he had a couple bad turnovers, 1 or 2 last game, but like he's strong, he's physical. So outside of him just not being the greatest shooter in the world right now, I'm very excited about his trajectory.
You need the free throw shooting.
Yes.
That's the common theme, right? But I think particularly with the Dante Allen 50, I was shocked at how low it was. 59.8% for Dante Allen. A player of that style, he needs to be, you know, reliable. I always think of like the Chauncey Billups, who kind of had a similar body to Dante Allen, big, strong guard. He was 80%, and you knew at the end of games he was going to get open because he was so strong, and he's going to bury the shots. So he was just kind of like that Iceman down the stretch. I think the free throw shooting needs to improve for Dante, but a lot of this too, you've seen this before, where you have a guy like Trey Donaldson, who's such a dominant personality, a similar type of player to Dante Allen in terms of just the way they're built and their skill set. He's going to take a little bit of a back seat to Trey as the senior, him being the freshman. I think as time goes on, his role, and Trey leaves, which obviously you don't want to lose a player like that. Yeah. The guy's unbelievable, but that's just college basketball. When he leaves, I think you'll see an expanded role for Dante, and he'll have more confidence doing some of the things that Trey Donaldson is doing now without a conscience. Because Trey Donaldson, there's no second guessing anything he does, attacking the rim, you know, finishing, taking threes. He is a super confident player as the alpha of this offense and really of this team, in my view. I think Dante Allen will do more of that when Donaldson leaves and he has a bigger role.
Yeah, backing up. So he's on board with Lucas needing more time to build the roster. He's the right coach. Just hope he finds it necessary to really build a roster. I'll say this, man. Again, his thing is he's a recruiter. I have a hard time believing that with real success to point to, he's not going to be able to grab some. I mean, Caden Daughtry, one of the top point guards in the country for next year, is someone that I think they're in a good spot for. You already have Gaskins coming in, Noah Peck as well, top 80 player in the country. I think they feel like they're in a good spot for. They're working the international market hard, from what I understand. They were already, you know, close to bringing in a big guy. From what I understand, that's not going to end up happening. But I expect them to bring in another 1 or 2 guys from that market, and you have to expect some of these guys to take leaps as well. True Washington's another guy that comes back. It should be on paper, you know. He has another year of eligibility, so.
The European guys is developing as well, because I mean, what's the eligibility on that? And
they all have multiple years. I think Noam has 3, Salih Altuntas has 4, Timo should have 4. So pretty crazy, but you get those guys for multiple years.
No Smoke asking about Jackson Dollar, tight end recruit. He visited this season. Like he was one of these in-season visits, I believe. But he visited unofficially. They're trying to get him back down. So he's definitely a target. He's someone on the list. Although I think when you talk about tight end, the name that I hear the most is Cartwright from Detroit, Michigan. That's the name I hear the most about when it comes to tight end. Guy that played basketball, played baseball, played a little quarterback, physical guy, highly productive. Oregon's in that battle too. I think Cartwright's the name to watch from a tight end perspective. And you do have DeRoche already committed, who is local guy, big-time athlete, could play defense, but probably, I think, leaning towards offense right now. Played that at the camp and is a great basketball player. So, Pete, I got to run. I got an event here I got to get to.
Hold on. Can I bring this comment up real quick?
Please.
You wanted to skip over this one? No Smoke, a man of great intelligence, says he's about to start panicking like Pete. We need running back and tight end coaches. My top guys, Myson, Johnson, Cook, is getting a crystal ball already, and Jackson Dollar is someone who can help our tight end room get back. Yeah, man. Listen, hop on board with me. I'm leading the panic crew here. So
we'll see. If the news breaks, we'll be live here on Canes.
We're staying on. I'm staying on.
And we're staying on right now. Yeah, we're bringing in the Oracle of the Ozarks, Lance Roffers. I'm tagging out because I got to go to an event. I'll be back, I'm sure, on later today to break stuff down. Hopefully there's some news to report. Maybe a coach, maybe a recruit. Who knows?
Coach coming or coach leaving? You never know these days, man.
Like and subscribe to the show. Pete's about to take over here. I'm tapping out. Enjoy Lance Roffers, the Oracle of the Ozarks.
All right, guys. I'm going to bring Lance in here momentarily. As I'm going to have to rearrange this camera setup a little bit here. There we go. So, Lance.
What's up, Pete?
Good morning, man. How are you feeling?
Life is good. We scared Danny off, huh?
We scared him off, man. We scared him off. No, I think he's got some stuff he's got to get to here. But Lance, good morning. My first question to you is how have you recovered from Galentine's and the events of such?
You got a long memory, my friend.
Yeah, I do.
The Galentine's was fun. I got all the tea on what all the dudes around the Ozarks are doing, and then we celebrated with the fam here at home, and I've got 2 daughters. I don't know if you know that or not, and so we do a little Valentine's thing for them and stuff. So it was a good time, and we helped the greeting card industry with their fake holiday, and now we're through it and into the dog days of the off season, right? Before football starts up in the spring. Baseball's just kind of getting going. Basketball, though, we're starting to get close to March Madness, where some of these events that we're seeing really impact things. So,
listen, when I'm starting to get some text from Lance about basketball. It's big time now. The Canes. The Canes are getting where they need to be when Lance starts getting interested there. But no, I know you're a big baseball. Well, you know what? We'll have to talk some baseball here at the end, because I know you've been wanting to. That's not necessarily my forte right now. I used to call games on WVUM. I was very into it. I kind of let D Money handle that with us. But Lance, we're kind of going off the cuff here because like you said, it is off season. But I wanted to start with, we've talked a lot of offensive line and how things are going to shake out there. One guy that we hadn't, I don't think, really focused on when we talked O-line, I think it was last week that we did O-line, or maybe 2 weeks ago now at this point.
It was 2 weeks ago. Last week we did nickel,
2 weeks ago. Yeah, last week we did nickel, you're right. Ben Congden, because I had one of his trainers, NIL advisors on from high school yesterday, who's known him since he was early on in his junior year. And one thing I'm hearing is that this kid and I've seen him, came in at 315. He's up at 330, maybe a little bit past it right now, Lance, which, you watch a lot of this stuff from high school, but I'm getting the sense that this guy might be just as ready to go as a Jackson Cantwell in terms of playing early.
Yeah. When you evaluate that offensive line class that Miami brought in, right, you can even lose track of some of these guys where, maybe under some previous regimes, they might have been the headliner of an offensive line that you bring in. One of the things that I really enjoyed about Congden, you talk about the size. He's kind of ready to go out of the gate, right? Mm-hmm. You can see on film how much of a worker he is, right? Because of the fact that, when he's lined up against other players, you kind of see his physique, you kind of see his frame, you see his development, right? But you also see some of the improvement throughout the years, right? If you look at his junior and then maybe some of his senior stuff, you really see him starting to understand that as he gets to the next level, it's not just about being bigger and stronger than your opponent, which you see a lot on offensive line tape for high school players right there. Oftentimes 6'5", 6'6", 310 pounds going up against, 220-pound, 200-pound defensive linemen in some of these cases where, guys are going to be going pro in something other than football. And at that height differential, you can just kind of lean on a guy, right? But what I've seen from Congden is the ability to really, lower his hips and drop that butt, right? And really be able to kind of roll into that contact. And that's kind of like the 101, if you think of like a high school offensive lineman as they get into college, right? That very beginning, whenever they get the college offensive line coaches get their hands on them, that's what they're teaching them, right? They're teaching them, okay, at high school, you could just, extend your arms and lean on guys. Here, you can't lean on guys, right? If you lean, they're gonna cross your face. They're gonna get outside. They're gonna use your hands against you, right, and kind of throw you off, right? where if you think of it like in the weight room, those listeners who, lift weights and do some of those things, think of like a squat where you don't push your hips back as you're kind of going down, right? And now your back rounds and you're putting all your pressure on your back, your lower back, right? And that's just going to take away your ability to lift more weight, right? And be explosive in those situations. You can still squat, you can still do the exercise, you can still do the rep, but you're going to do it with less weight, less explosion, less athleticism, and more risk of injury, right? It's the same deal when you're talking about technique with offensive linemen. If you can first get that ability to kind of lift and push those hips back, right? Now you're spring loaded. Think of it, again, kind of like a golf swing as well, where you're not just arms anymore. Now you're shifting your weight and pushing through. That's the very first thing that you want to see from high school offensive linemen. And Congden already does that. He already has that ability, right? So when he gets in, he's going to be starting at like 102 or, 210, whatever your college does, as far as the second course goes. So he's got a chance to kind of hit the ground running and make his way into those, that 2 deep. We talk about the 2 deep a lot, right? Mm-hmm. In college, it's really probably more about a top 8 when you're talking about offensive line, because, just because your tackle gets hurt doesn't mean your next guy behind him is going to be the one that comes in. You may see some shuffling, things like that. But with Miami, they want to have 10. You hear Mirabal and you hear Mario and you talk about, the 8 number that a lot of coaches talk about. Miami really wants to have 10 that are ready to play. Most years you're not going to have 10. I think this year Miami might have the ability to have 10.
Yeah.
It may not be the elite 5 that you saw last year, right? But I think with the bodies that they're throwing at it, with the consistent class stacking that they're doing on the offensive line, now you've got a chance for, the Buchanans, the Congdens, maybe even a Wilkerson, someone like that, to sneak their way into that top 10. And once you kind of get into the top 10 at a P4 college level, now you got a chance to really, make some NIL. You got a chance to make a name for yourself, impact some of these games. And I think all 3 of the tackles that Miami brought in last year would be fine being a headliner for a P4, most P4 programs. And the fact that Miami brought in all 3 of them is just, it brings a smile to my face, because offensive line is where I believe the foundation of this game starts. And I know we're always in good hands with these guys.
Lance, do you think that Congden can play guard, can play inside? I know he's tall, but it's just something that I've thought of as well. I have a hard time believing, me personally, that you're going to have 2 freshmen starting tackles. Obviously, that's probably not going to be the case. But I can envision maybe, Cantwell at a right tackle, and maybe you see a Congden getting mixed in at one of the interior spots. But
those guard spots are wide open, right? I mean, you've got a chance to 6, 7, 8 players that could have.
And we've seen them platoon. We've seen them do a platoon with success. So I'm sure Mirabal is going to think they can do it again if it comes to it.
And when you do a platoon, a lot of times that can be frustrating for fans because they prefer one side or the other. But one of the positives that you're doing with that is you're practicing what you preach when you talk about competition, right? And now you got competition in games, right, where you got guys that get a series and they know that series is important to whether they're going to get another one, right? And so you've constantly got players who are, at their best as far as competition goes and the compete level that they're putting out there. I do believe Buchanan can play guard. You see that in the NFL quite a bit now, where a lot of these teams are now looking to have some more size.
We're talking about Congden, right? We're talking about Congden.
We are talking about Congden. Yep. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm mispronouncing it,
but You said Buchanan.
All right. I'm feeling the DNA role.
I got confused. No. I got confused for a second. I guess because Buchanan is, I think he's a big time candidate to be a starter and to be one of the guys at guard. But I think what you're getting at is that NFL is moving to having tall, bigger, taller guards as well, which is what Congden would fall under.
Yeah, the problem with the height, right, is can you drop that butt? We've already spent 5 minutes kind of talking about the fact that he has that ability. Lower leg flexibility is any scout will talk to you about that when they talk about offensive line, right? Is he a waist bender or is he a knee bender, right? And basically what they're saying there is, do they have the ability to drop low, right? With Buchanan and Congden, you see it with both of them. Both of those guys are big. I think they both, have the ability to go inside. I know Congden was recruited as a tackle. He's kind of been mentioned as a tackle, but you can only play two, right? And there's 4, 5, 6 of these guys that kind of have that similar body type that can go outside. The more you can do, the more valuable you are, right? And so I think you at least cross train him there and see how he can do it in practice and compete against some of the quickness that you see inside. It is actually much faster inside, and these guys are trying to get across your face and get upfield, especially in the Miami system where we run a lag nose or we run, a gap skip technique, right? It's called a long arm, essentially a long arm technique where maybe you go from a 3 to a 1 and you're trying to get across and shoot that gap, right? And then you're trying to get the runner to cut back into your flow from your linebackers at that point. And so can he handle that? It's going to be like the first thing, right? Yeah. And then is he going to be able to like leverage against, at that height? And then kind of something, that also has to be taken into consideration just a little bit is Mensah's comfort, right? Like how does he like, his vision with some of those guards, right? If he's really bothered by 6'6" guards and you throw 2 of them out there, you're kind of already maybe making him a little more uncomfortable than you need to. I know that's kind of a small criterion, and Mirabal probably tells you he doesn't care at all. But, I'm just kind of like, from an analyst standpoint, that's one of the things that you kind of sometimes with a quarterback who's not overly tall. I believe Mintz is about 6'2", right? So he's not a huge quarterback. He's certainly not short, but that's another consideration that sometimes comes up with these taller guards as well.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if you had a chance to see some of the testing stuff from over the weekend, but Mark Matthews would slide in quite nicely on this offensive line next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that you pop on, the Oregon tackle tape and say, hey, you could be next. You could be this guy next at the NFL level. I kind of forget his name, actually. He's with the Lions. What's his name? Penei Sewell, yeah. You throw his tape on and you sell Matthews on that guy, right? Because you've got a proof of concept in the past of some of these guys that, are very similar to him. Penei Sewell, again, is kind of an elite athlete, similar sizes. He's a guy that you really can sell Matthews on. Matthews is kind of what you want, right? He's in the lab, left tackle. I think you land him. He probably is your left tackle next year. I do believe he's that good. I think personally that coming out of high school, he's a more ready to go tackle prospect than even Jackson Cantwell was. I know Jackson Cantwell has kind of like some rare gifts as far as physicality and power goes that, none of us will ever be able to attain no matter how much we train, right? Just because of the fact that he literally set records every time.
Hey, there's some crazy stuff on the market now, Lance. It would be a great experiment to try.
Well, I'm 5'10", 190, so I'm probably never breaking.
Yeah, not happening. Not happening. The genetics are always going to be outmatched.
Genetics have been my problem ever since birth. So I always wished I could dunk and never was able to. I could kind of get a volleyball if you threw it at my peak, but now no chance. So
no chance. Lance, it's funny because we were kind of joking around about it this week, but one of our best videos in a while here on the page was Cole McConathy's position switch from tight end or from defensive end to tight end. And it's peak off-season stuff. It's stuff you do in the college football video game, right? But, I mean, your thoughts on the move, I think it makes sense on the outside looking in. I also am a little bit disappointed because he was making strides, I thought, as a freshman, getting playing time, got banged up, obviously, last year. But the tight end room needed, I think, another body in there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the tight end room needs a body that has gone through, you know, some of the weight training, some of the years of the grind to just kind of grow a mustache, as, you know, Danny likes to say, some of those things. You know, it's probably a little pessimistic sounding, right? It's usually not a great sign for a guy's career, right? If he's getting shifted from, you know, a position that he was heavily recruited at, got some shine at, and he's going to one that he's never played before.
Well, committed to Louisville too. People I think forget that.
Yeah, you know, I was always kind of the low man on McConathy's film and projections. When I say low man, I'm talking about to an elite P4 school, right? I'm not talking about compared to me or, you know, Missouri State defensive ends, things like that, right? I'm talking about, you know, at a P4 elite starting level is kind of where I was a little pessimistic on his chances, because I just kind of thought he was more of a power edge that you know, maybe was just going to compete and get by on effort and motor. But flip that to the, you know, the tight end side, right, where that's a lot of things that they're asking that individual to do, basically, is just lose slow on the edge, be athletic, you know, be able to like have the strength and the physicality to do some of those wham blocks, some of those split motion, some of those lead flows out of, you know, split motion, where you kind of motion across and then you insert as a lead blocker. Some of those things that we saw last year, you know, Bauman did a lot of, and honestly, he didn't set the bar at an impossible level on film, right? So I think if you have McConathy in that kind of role, he can absolutely add value. I always kind of like look at it from an overall like player standpoint. It makes me kind of like think, why did he not like explore another opportunity elsewhere, right, where he was going to get a chance to play defensive end? So that tells me he's embracing the move, right?
That's what I said the other day too. It makes me feel like he might look around in that defensive end room and say, there's some guys who just have some more physical gifts than I do right now. I do think he fits a certain profile that there aren't a ton of in that room, Lance, but he might then look over to the tight end room and say, I want to just go hit someone. I want to go out there and run and hit someone.
I want to play. Yeah.
And they need someone who can do that in that room right now, because very excited about Gavin Mueller. Israel Briggs is going to need, I think, a year of development. Maybe he becomes someone who can be a pass catcher, but I don't know that he's anywhere near ready being able to take the physical blocking.
He's more of a Lofton replacement, right? He's just a different body type. He's
yeah, but I mean, even then, though, Lofton, they're asking him to block a lot. I don't know that I think that he's someone they want to split out more wide, to tell you the truth.
I think they had to with Lofton, right? I think they wanted Lofton to be more of like kind of a Swiss Army knife, H back, F tight end, a little bit of fullback, a little bit of, you know, halfback.
Yeah.
Lofton just kind of like
completely different build.
Yeah, and you know, you hear the term like he's a pure football player a lot when you talk about Lofton, and that can be a double-edged sword, right? That's high praise that, hey, you can just stick him anywhere and he'll compete.
But it's coded. It's coded wording sometimes.
It absolutely is, right? It also means not excelling at any particular area at this point to where he's really like that's what his thing is, right? And so you know, you used to hear tweener when you would talk about like draft language and some of those things, right? Lofton's a little bit of a tweener right now, in the fact that, you know, he's not really big enough or strong enough or healthy enough maybe to line up in line and do some of the things that they've asked him to do. He's maybe not as comfortable on the move blocking, right? He's also not as tall as like what you would get like a lot of red zone types where they're, you know, just kind of able to high point it. So he's got some absolute skills, and then he's got some areas where you got to get creative to get the most out of him. And I think McConathy, you know, he's got the height, he's got athleticism. I don't know about his hands, right? That's a complete projection for me. I haven't seen him do it, so I don't know there. But I do know from watching him, he's got the physicality and the competitive desire to at least, you know, try it, to at least try to block, to at least fight you online and in line. Sorry. And that's absolutely what we need at that position right now. I think Mueller has a chance to be special when it comes to like that vertical seam, that red zone, you know, just the ability to kind of like catch the ball away from his frame. To me, he's very much like a bigger Arroyo when it comes to like, physicality and some of those things. And if you listen to me, you know, I was absolutely the biggest Arroyo fan. So that's high praise for me. It's hard to ask a guy to be able to do that right out of the gates, as a true freshman. You got Carver, he's got some of that similar size, but he's also been hurt a lot. You've got Mueller coming in as a true freshman. And then, you kind of got the Luka Gilbert, who's what they hope takes a step forward this year. But, you got a lot of projection there. So this is probably an opportunity for McConathy to get on the field and to contribute quicker than he would have at the defensive line. He's kind of pulling the opposite J.J. Watt, right? The J.J. Watt.
It's funny. Like that's what D Money said the other day as well on it.
Of course he did. We got that wavelength. Right?
Of course he would find that the most positive possible outcome to this one. It's interesting, Lance. You mentioned it makes you wonder why a guy wouldn't look for opportunities elsewhere, like McConathy, if he was going to be put in this position, or maybe he wasn't put in this position. Maybe it was just him wanting to do it. But we've gotten the question, like, why didn't Miami go out and maybe look to the portal for a tight end? My two things would be, well, you have two highly rated guys out of high school that are getting, those guys aren't cheap. They were big time recruits. And then the other thing I would say is just like, there's not a tight ends coach right now. So like, how are you going to get someone when the guy doesn't know who his coach is going to be? That's just the fact of the matter.
And who was available too, right?
Right.
You in some ways can kind of manufacture availability just from, let's just say, contacts within the industry, like you did at quarterback, right? But at tight end, it's a little bit of a different situation. You're kind of at the mercy of what's available out there. There's not a ton out there, and I think you hit on it quite well, right? If you go out and get, an established guy that everybody in that room knows is now the starter, you might lose one of the guys that, young guys that you've told will have an opportunity. Moving to McConathy from defensive end to tight end is not going back on your word with any of these guys that they're going to have an opportunity, right? That's probably not scaring off. I say scare off. That's probably not motivating.
They may have been scared off from last year, if we're being honest too.
Absolutely. And I think all of it is kind of like just managing a program, right? Trying to find what's the right buttons to push as far as like the politics with the portal goes, keeping individuals within that room, keeping word that, you've given to them, as well as, hey, there's only so much money to go around, right? And if you're paying, I'm just going to throw out a number, right? If you're paying 6 figures to one guy, you're paying 6 figures to a guy coming in. Are you really going to go out now and pay that to a third guy at tight end where you've got maybe 4 or 5 body types in there that have an opportunity or at least the potential to play? I think that's probably the way it goes, right? I will not pretend to be an expert on the NIL politics. That was not around when I was, involved in the college game, when I was around the coaches doing those kinds of things. When I was around, it was, the 1AA is what you could like immediately be eligible, for transfers and all that. And that's what we saw, right? We saw those guys come in. And as a guy like me, who was obviously going pro in something other than football pretty early on, that was demoralizing because now you're like, okay, well, they brought this guy in for a reason. And they told this guy, that's the spot he's going to have. So I'm not even competing for that. Right. And so just kind of putting myself in that own position, I think that kind of plays into it with the politics of things.
A few more things before I let you go, Lance, but before we continue, let the people know who this segment is brought to you by, as it is every week, Kanata Financial.
Yeah, Kanata Financial, our friend Sebastian Kanata, he's just like us, right? He's one of us, pound on the table like the GIF, right? Where he's a lifelong Canes fan. He's based out of Atlanta, but, he can help you across the country, right? You small business owners. What he really, specializes in is your accounting services, your CFO services, payroll, bookkeeping. What he basically wants to do is free you up to be able to do what you're good at, which is, grow your business, be the CEO of your business, and him and his team can be the CFO for you at Canada Financial, CANNATA financial.com. Give them a call and, tell them Lance sent you.
CANNATA, go Canes. How about that?
I like it.
Lance, baseball. I want to give you a chance to talk about baseball. I won't go as in depth as our friend Daniel Money does, but just your early impressions to the season. Thriller on Tuesday night there against UCF.
Yeah, gosh, when it comes to baseball, I can be a little bit fatalistic. You live and die a little too much with the ebbs and flows of the game, right? And they, UCF kind of had that Florida State transfer on the mound in the midweek game, and he was impressive. He did a good job keeping the bats off balance. Used his fastball, kind of shoved all four quadrants of the zone, kept them off balance a little bit. And when they did make contact, it was pretty weak contact, kept them off the barrel, that kind of thing. It's frustrating when you see that, right? When you see, okay, a team like UCF, which, no disrespect intended, they are not the Miami Hurricanes when it comes to the blue bloods of baseball, right? And they've got a midweek transfer from a Power 4 team who's kind of shutting down the bats of Miami a little bit and really shoving, right? And Miami's transfer, he didn't really kind of have the same stuff or the same arm on his first view, right, of what their guy did. And that gets a little frustrating at times, right, when you've got a head coach whose background is in pitching and really kind of wants to build a team and a program with depth of arms. And the early impression right now is a little frustrating that we didn't do maybe more in the portal with some of the starting arms, things like that. I think you're kind of projecting just a little bit with Laz, Cholera and Rob Evans, some of those guys right now. You're hoping they take a step forward this year over what they showed last year and really solidify that Saturday spot. It's difficult to be a team that you want to be and get to Omaha without a Friday and Saturday guy that you can really count on. I think you can get away without a star Sunday guy by having maybe some bullpen. I think you can get away with the midweeks a lot of times just by mashing, which is what they did against UCF, right? And the college game is fun because it's a little bit different than MLB, right? Your comment there about losing Marks and Danny Marchione or Macchione, however it was pronounced, was huge, right? But as a coach, I think you got to.
Danny Macchione, wasn't that the ref? Wasn't that the ACC ref that everyone hated? Oh, that's Magallanes, that's Maganales, Jerry Maggs.
Okay, all right. I think the head coach is responsible for balancing that risk, right? Having those conversations with those guys when you get them out of the portal, like, what's your interest in the draft? What number do you need out of the draft to be able to sign, right? From my understanding, based on what Baseball America is reporting, it wasn't that much, right? It was like 150,000, right? So, you gotta really be prepared for those if you want to be one of those elite teams. Maybe Miami doesn't quite have the funds of an LSU and some of those other teams, but I feel like you probably need one more arm to emerge. You got Nick Robert and Menendez coming back, and I'm a huge Menendez guy. That's kind of one of the guys I'm hanging my hopes on. If he comes back healthy, in April, May, that may give you a chance then to really solidify by the time June comes around. I think the bats are still kind of waking up a little bit right now. Cuvée is kind of a typical slow starter, or at least the last couple of years he has been, and then, kind of turns it on late. You look at his OPS, it's still really darn good.
Yeah, I was going to say, great slow start from him.
Yeah, but how much of that is driven by on-base percentage, where maybe they're avoiding him in the middle of that lineup right now?
Is that his fault? Is that his fault? I mean,
nobody's assigning fault. We're kind of like talking about where we're at as a state of a team right now. And I've done almost nothing right now, but kind of like bag on them, and they're 5-0, right? So
Yeah.
good place to be. They got a Power 4 win, already over a team that I was impressed with. I thought UCF they looked like a possible regional team, quite honestly. Up and down, they competed hard, had some good arms out of the bullpen. They obviously have that starter that I really liked. I think he'd be Miami's midweek starter if he was on Miami's team, quite honestly. And then, hey, we had a freshman start against Indiana State, a really strong mid-major, one I'm quite familiar with from Missouri State being in their conference up until this year. You got a freshman that, what I really like about any freshman coming in, I kind of talked about the hip drop and the flexibility of some of the offensive linemen kind of coming in from high school to football, right? In baseball, it's can you throw strikes with your secondaries, right? Can you command your fastball? And then can you throw strikes with your secondaries? That Santos Olsen kid, he showed that he could do that with 2 pitches, right? And if you're 90 and you can spin a ball in the zone at the college level, you got a chance, right? You can get college hitters out with just those 2 ingredients. I thought he had that. I thought he also showed some composure, right? I believe that was his first appearance in D1, right? And did a good job with that. So I kind of track all these, fancy numbers, things like that, because I'm just a big numbers dork, and that's what I do, right? And Miami's off to a really strong start when it comes to like looking at what they're doing offensively versus what they're doing pitching wise. And then I kind of take away like garbage stuff, right? Beating somebody 28-3, that doesn't tell me a whole lot, right? Once it gets to a certain point, the game's kind of over, right? I don't, once it's 10-3, 12-3, those other 16 runs, I don't really count them so much like when it comes to your offense, because that's not something you would ever see like in a real series or a regional or things along those lines. So I filter out that garbage time stuff. But even doing so, Miami, looks to be a top 20 team this season. And when you're top 20, you got a chance with a favorable draw to make it to Omaha.
And then just real quick here, Lance, as we wrap things up, looking ahead to you have the series with Lafayette this weekend, but I think everyone's got their eyes on Florida next weekend.
Oh, yeah. And, hey, call it like it is. They've kind of owned the Canes historically under Sullivan, and they're set up to be a strong team again this year. Florida really is. They look like they got a chance to be pretty strong. I know they dropped a game against I believe it was UAB, on opening night, and that does happen sometimes, especially in baseball. But they're going to be a team that competes. To me, your season's not over if you drop that series, but darn, you really want to beat the Florida Gators at anything you do, right? And I think they've got a chance. They're at home. I think they got a chance, based on talent-wise. We'll see how the pitching kind of comes together just a little bit, and hopefully, they can get some length out of a couple of their starters, so they're not having to like burn Bilka for where he only gets in one. Because I really want to see Bilka twice in that series, right? I really want him to have the ability to impact 2 games if you can. Otherwise, why is he not a starter, right? If he's just impacting 1 game a week for you, why is he not a starter for you, right? To where he can impact more, in my opinion. And so to me, it's on our manager to find a way to extract the most value out of Bilka. And if it's not going to be as a starting pitcher like I want him to be, right, then you need to make it to where he's impacting more than 1 game a week, or you're kind of giving things away there.
Yeah, the baseball series will be, that will be for the sports series between Miami and Florida this year. Miami obviously won the football game. Florida beat Miami in basketball early in the season, and what they're doing basketball-wise is I'm a bit envious of them. I think Jay Lucas will get it there soon. But, yeah, baseball will be the deciding factor between the major 3 sports, so hopefully the boys take it home.
So tell me about basketball a little bit, before you let me go here. Give me some Pete-isms on basketball. I'm way into football, kind of cut my teeth with baseball, college baseball in particular, just as a, data analytics guy in college. But basketball, I'm just a fan, right? So,
and it's funny because I'm feeling really good. I was gonna actually ask you on the side, and I'll ask you now, what your understanding of the net rankings are, for college basketball, because like it's very weighted on obviously who you play and who you beat and who you lose to. But
And
right now, Lance, and where you play, right? But right now, Lance, they're getting beat up, I think, in the formula, which is an interesting thing just to look at the team as a whole. They're getting beat up because they play so many close games. They don't blow anybody out. They're just winning a lot of games by, a handful of points in very possession by possession games. And like right now, Miami's 37th. The other day after beating North Carolina State on the road, they moved from 37th to 35th. And then they ended up dropping again now to 37th. Like they've been in the same range here, winning now 3 games in a row, beating Carolina. I know Carolina is banged up now, but they played a full strength Carolina team at the time. I mean, look, to answer your question, how am I feeling? I feel great. This is year 1 of Jay Lucas. They're 21-5. They're sole possession of 3rd place in the ACC. If they win a game on the road tomorrow, they're in 2nd place in the ACC behind Duke, which is, it's an 18-team basketball conference. So this is, it's a pretty astounding start, in my opinion.
With losses to Florida State and Cal, right? Where like
with losses to Florida State and Cal, then
if you don't let those trip up, you're talking about special, right? So,
dude, you're talking about a top 20 team for sure. Maybe you're in the same position as Virginia. Virginia's 23-3, number 14 in the country right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I feel great about it. I'm going to need you to dig into that a little bit because that's my guess on it right now. Is I think they're getting beat up on that part of it, Lance. But I look at the teams that are in, like some of the teams in front of them right now. And it's, why it's bothering me? Because we see this in football with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Oh, yeah. Like Auburn. What a joke,
Auburn, right. They're 14-13 now, but they were, before their loss last night, because this hasn't been updated yet for this morning, they were 34th at 14-12.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Is 16-9 at 35th. Wisconsin, 18-8. SMU in the same conference as Miami is 18-8, but they're 31st in the country at 18-8. North Carolina has beaten Kansas, and they beat another big time team this year. They beat Kentucky also, who they're ahead of Miami. But North Carolina was the same record and they've beaten Duke. Miami has a better record than them and beat them head to head and play in the same conference as them. North Carolina is 9 spots ahead of Miami, and Miami has a better record and beat them head to head. So
they really punish you for where you play it, right? If you win at home, you really get punished, kind of like the RPI does, but maybe even more so. Like where for the net, if you play at home against a certain team, it could be a quad 2 game or a quad 3 game. Where if you play them on the road, now it's a quad 1 game, right? And that is what's really impacting Miami quite a bit, right? Is that they lost that Florida State game at home. That's a big killer.
Yeah.
They lost that Cal game at home. Again, that's a really negative impact on your overall net when you lose those games at home. Playing a game on the road is almost just as good as winning a game at home in some of these formulas when you're talking about those edge cases, right? Especially if it's a Florida State who was having a tough year thus far. That's one of the big things is kind of like just mathing on where you play those, right? And so Miami's big wins have mostly been at home. I felt like that North Carolina State game that they won on the road was a pretty big part of a resume defense if you get in that room, right? And you're kind of talking about, there's just no way that an Auburn can get in over a Miami when you look at their
they're not. I don't think they are.
When you look at their resumes, right? And so the net has one higher, but I think when you get in that room and you kind of talk through the totality of everything, it'll certainly fall Miami's way in those arguments, but that's what's really holding them back in that number. And they're probably going to end up being, something like a 9 or a 10 seed at this point.
Yeah.
We'll see how the rest of things go out if they go and win.
I keep saying, Lance, like that's what's kind
of were they last
frustrating
year,
to me.
What was Miami last year?
Won 1 game, 2 games in the ACC last year. So
that's where I'm at.
But here's why I'm a little frustrated, Lance, and like Miami Angel Share Society says, basketball rankings are terrible. The Blue Bloods stay in the top 25. Record means nothing. These net rankings are supposed to look at these resumes completely blind, right? It's not supposed to look at it's very analytics based, which is why I'm asking you about it. But why I'm frustrated is like I'm still seeing 9, 10 seed projections. The media, the NCAA does this new thing where they give you the top 16 seeds like every other week now, and they kind of give you an idea. And then the media also did their own bracket where they had Miami as a 10 seed. But I'm looking in my very optimistic view of the thing, of the world. The way that you say you're very pessimistic about baseball, I'm like very optimistic about basketball. But I'm looking at them like, if Miami goes on the road, I'm not saying they're going undefeated, but let's say they go 4-1 here, they beat Virginia on the road, or they lose to Virginia in a close one, they run the table, they beat SMU, they beat on the road, which is a good win, they beat Louisville at home, and you drop one game and maybe you get you get to the semifinals of the ACC tournament. I feel like this team should be in position to be like a 6-7 seed if they go and do that. But it doesn't look like they're going to be given the opportunity to do that. And Flankerton talking about, which I agree with. He says that UNC also lost to the reigning national champs, and number 2 pick in the draft. Those are quality losses. But this is where the quality losses thing, we talk about it in football. UNC also lost to Stanford and Cal. Away games though, so I guess that's the part of it that's keeping them from being horrible losses for them. It's
I don't believe in quality losses. Like, all a quality loss shows me is that you can lose to good teams. Who are you going to play in the tournament? You're going to play good teams, right? I don't care who you lost to. Like, I don't care if you lost to a bad team or a great team. You lost, right? I care who you beat. Who have you shown that you can win against? Who have you shown that you can compete against in their building? I'm big on road. I really believe that, if you can win a road game or show that you can compete on a road game, that you got a chance to win in these neutral sites. And I'm just so thrilled at like what kind of season they're doing here. I know they're throwing a lot of money in basketball. I know that matters, right? Like if you got a team that you're spending $7 million NIL, you expect to be pretty decent. I get all that, but last year, those are middle.
Those aren't even crazy numbers for what I mean. Kentucky's got a $20 million roster.
Yeah. So. Last year we spent money on NIL as well, and it was not a great year. I'm pretty impressed with Jay Lucas's ability to kind of like get them to stay the course when things aren't looking the best late in games. Right, under 5 minutes. A lot of these games, Miami's been down 2, 4, 5 points with under 5 minutes to go and found ways to win. Is that super sustainable? Is that highly volatile? Yeah, it is. You could get into a tournament game, right? And now things don't break your way. You go out first round. I don't care. Last year, they won 1, 2 conference games. They weren't even fun to watch for me. I felt like things kind of got mailed in.
They weren't competing.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, right?
I've said it. I said it during the season last year, so you don't have to hold them. And look, we obviously it's there was interim coach, may he rest in peace, Bill Courtney, great man. But I just think at the end of that Larranaga era, just got away from him, and it's just nice to see the energy year one, man, because Florida State, I'm a believer in what, Luke Lauk's their coach, but I think it's taken him a little bit now to get this things going. Like, we're in the mix, man. We're right now a double bye in the ACC tournament, which is, that's as good as it gets, really. You're going to have in year one. So, in Virginia, I'm excited about the conference as a whole, Lance, because when we had Jay on the other day, I said, look, I grew up watching early to mid 2000s ACC. It was primetime stuff, and it seems like they're getting back to it now. You got some really good young coaches there. Carolina's an interesting situation. Their fans don't seem too happy with Hubert Davis right now, but if they decide to hire someone else, they'll bring in someone top of the line. So excited about the trajectory of the conference here moving forward.
Yeah. Me as well, and like I say, I'm just a fan in basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know the X and O's, I don't know all that kind of stuff. I just know that it's fun to be good. It's fun to have a team to root for. Whenever it comes this time of year and next month, things like that. A bunch of us take the week, off, or the late week off and the
Yeah.
weekend, and go to the casino and watch all the games, up on the big screen, and to have one of your teams.
I'll be right here where I am right now at Duffy's Tavern for March.
Yeah, I don't have a Duffy's out here in Springfield, Mo. So I gotta go to the casino to enjoy such a wonderful atmosphere as you. So,
Lance, awesome stuff. It was fun, just kind of hitting some random topics today. But
we don't get a chance to do it one-on-one without that pesky Danny.
Of course. Hey, again, shout out to Canada Financial for bringing everyone this segment with Lance weekly. Go to CanadaFinancial.com. Lance, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time today. All
right. Enjoy your day. Take care. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Great stuff there from Lance. We've listened an hour and a half in here now. We talked some recruiting in the beginning. If you guys are just joining me now, it was D-Money and I at the start of the show. He had something he had to get to, but did recruiting great. Then did a great interview with Coach Andrew Moran, assistant coach for Canes Hoops, who really has been a big part of this team's success this year. Then brought Lance on, talked about some of the freshmen here, Cole McConathy's transition to tight end. So a lot of stuff going on here at Duffy's Tavern. Kirk Menendez, waiting for you to get over here, man. I know you'll be over here soon. But guys, I'm also going to be going live this afternoon at 3 p.m. for CanesInSight PM. So stay tuned for that. Before that, I wanted to shout out my friends at Chill Zone Air Conditioning, chillzoneac.com, servicing Tampa all the way down here to the South Florida area. Duct work, duct cleanings, AC installation, AC repair, maintenance, works on mini splits, central AC units, package units, water source heat pumps. And also, this is for commercial and residential. So for the home or business, visit chillzoneac.com. Shout out to Melissa and the whole team. Beat the heat with Chill Zone AC. Your comfort isn't just a temperature setting, it's a promise. Again, installation, repair, maintenance, and much more. chillzoneac.com. Visit them on social media as well. And again, the phone number is 786-378-2778. Chill Zone Air Conditioning. Appreciate everyone for hopping on with us this morning for CanesInSight Daily. We'll be back this afternoon for CanesInSight PM at 3 o'clock. Stay tuned for that. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Go Canes.